We're going to take a look at writing ratios in the form 1 to n. Now basically what that means is we want our ratio to start with the number 1. So in this first example here, our ratio currently starts with 10. We want it to start with the number 1 instead of 10. So in order to get it down to the number 1, what we need to do is 10 divided by 10 will give us 1. So 10 divided by 10 is 1. Now what you do to one side of a ratio, you must do the other side. So 3 divided by 10 then is 0.3. So our ratio is now in the form 1 to n. 1 at the start and then the equivalent number beside it. So that's 0.3 in this case. So if we take a look at our second example. So to get this to start with a 1, we're going to need to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. And then we need to also divide this here part by 2, because what you do to one side of a ratio, you must do to the other. So 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. Now on this last one here, if we are to get this to start with a 1, that means we're going to have to divide by 8. So 8 divided by 8 is 1, and then we're going to need to do 7 divided by 8. So for some of these more difficult ones, you may need to use a calculator. So in this case, we're going to use a calculator, and we're going to do our 7 divided by 8 in a calculator. And 7 divided by 8 gives you an answer of 0.875. So it's 120.875. And obviously, if you're doing a question like this, you need to check that if they're asking you to round it to a certain number of decimal places. That hasn't been asked here, so we're just writing it down exactly as we get it in the calculator. So if you notice in all of these examples, you're just dividing by the first numbers in your ratio. For this first one here, you're dividing by 10. The second example, you're dividing by 2. And in the third example, you're dividing by 8. So we've got 3 more questions here for you to do. And you can pause the video now and try these yourself. So we want them all to start with the number 1. And that means you're dividing by the first number in the ratio. So you want to go and try those now. And then you can pause the video and work through them and see if you're getting them right. Okay, so for the first one then, we're going to divide this by 2, because 2 divided by 2 will give us 1. And what we do to one side, we have to do the other side. So 5 divided by 2. And 5 divided into 2 equal parts is 2.5. So it's 1 to 2.5. The next one here, we're going to be dividing by 4. So 4 divided by 4 will give you 1. And 10 divided by 4 will give you 2.5. Okay, and in our last one, multiplying by 16. Because 16 divided by 16 will give you 1. And 22 divided by 16, well, that's maybe one that you might want to use a calculator for. So 22 divided by 16, and that gives you 1.375. So your answer is 1.375. So remember, if it's a ratio in the form 1n, basically what that means, we want the ratio to start with the number 1. So that means you're going to be dividing by the first number in the ratio, and what you divide by on the first part of the ratio, you must also divide by in the second part of the ratio.